Okay, right. Just because we want to get the ball rolling. Welcome again, everyone, this morning, and it's great to see so many of you have joined what proves to be a very informative webinar. So I hope you're looking forward to this as we get stuck into some of the detail. I'm Niall Dowds. I'm a distribution consultant here at Zurich UK, and it is my pleasure to host the webinar this morning. And the title, as you all should know, I'm hoping, is Property Resilience, and it's all about protecting your client's assets against the risk of underinsurance and fire. I will just do a quick bit of housekeeping if that's okay. The format of today's webinar is going to be a 45-minute-ish presentation followed by Q&A at the end. So please do, if any questions spring to mind or if you brought any questions along with you to ask us today, please pop them into the Q&A function in the webinar, and that would be great. We'll pick through as many of those as we can at the end. Just a heads up, this call is being recorded and we will be uploading this recording to YouTube later today, and we'll be sending that round for anyone who wishes to rewatch, or if you have colleagues who couldn't make it or attend, they'll be more than able to do so. I'll quickly now just jump onto a very brief introduction of our speakers. Today we have Andy Patterson with us, we have Dee Williams, Derek Parr and Jack Taylor, and I will let them introduce themselves when their various sections come up. But for now, Andy, if it's all right, I'll pass over to you.
Brilliant, thanks Niall. So yeah, good morning everyone, good to meet you. I said my name's Andy Patterson, Head of Business Development for Zurich Resilient Solutions. I may have met some of you on the session that Jack and I did in October, November. Good news today, we have got effectively three webinars in one, 3 short sessions for you. So what we're going to focus on today, as you can see on the screen, these are some of the services that Zurich Resilient Solutions offer. So we've got the insurance arm, but I know we work with a number of you already on some of the services you can see on screen. The 3 areas we're going to focus on today. So in a second, DV is going to go through the property risk side of things. So what we want to cover today is our approach to property risk assessments, how we grade, how we work through risk improvement actions. This is something that we get, and I specifically get asked for a lot. So DV will focus on that in a second. We are then going to focus on the fixed fire protection side of things as well. So Derek will go through emerging issues on fixed fire protection. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Jack and I did an underinsurance webinar for yourselves back in November. We are still seeing huge levels of underinsurance. So I know when talking to a number of you that are on this session, you're often having these conversations about, risk ratings and fire protection and underinsurance, but it can be quite difficult with the client, especially at the moment with budgets, with what they see as priorities, to actually get a client to understand where they're potentially underinsured. What we want to do for you today is effectively be able to give you some facts, some data, our experience, and probably most importantly, an insurer's point of view, so that when you're having these clients' conversations, you can really get clients to understand why they need to change perhaps, some of the things that they're doing at the moment, or perhaps some of the services that we can support them with. So just moving through, DV, just to the next slide. Great, thank you. So as Noah said, going to pass over to DV. We've got 3 short sessions. If you can, please give us your absolute undivided attention today, because we are going to cover a lot. As Noah said, we'll send the slides out. When you've got questions, put them in the chat. We'll spend as long as is necessary at the end to go through them. But yeah, hope you enjoyed today's session, and this really helps with retention of your clients going forward. So DV, over to you. DV, you're on mute.
There's always one, isn't there? Well, yes, just to introduce myself, my name is DV. I'm a property risk engineer here at ZRS, and I'm just going to be taking you through a very high-level overview in the next couple of slides around the role of what we do as risk engineers, how we assess property risk management, the criteria we use, and the framework that we use. So as the slide clearly indicates, it's very much from boots on the ground to suits in the boardroom. So what does that actually mean? So clearly we will do a lot of the site assessments ourselves. So that could include turning up on site, giving real-time advice to our customers and brokers around fire risk management. There are a number of different criteria that we will be assessing as part of that process, which I will run through in some of the later slides. But our engagement is very much varied throughout the insurance relationship, and we have a number of different touch points within that relationship that we will be regularly engaging with. So it's not just the broking community and the underwriters or even the site team, but often we could be engaging with designers, architects, contractors, a myriad really of different individuals as part of that program. So it is really important to get us in the room to be able to provide them with adequate real-time information around how they can protect their risk and the expectations. How does that translate into acceptability? Ultimately, the advice that we provide will also be given to our underwriting team, which will then dictate how they move forward in terms of coverage, in terms of pricing, and of course, whether or not they decide to accept the risk in the first place. Okay, so how do we do that? How do we start that assessment process? Every insurer will have a slightly different methodology that they use, but ultimately it will be very similar in terms of the approach and what we're actually looking for. And again, this is particularly for fire risk assessments. But here at ZRS, we use a framework called the risk flower approach. Effectively, there are several spheres to this approach. We have the exposures, which is what is the actual risk at hand. So what is the thing that could actually be damaged and cause a claim? The hazards, the potential sources of damage to the exposure, and of course, the controls itself. So what are the elements, what are the mitigation strategies to ensure that that property is adequately protected? We'll go into more depth around the potential controls in later slides, but as a broad overview, this is the framework that we use in every single assessment across the business that we do. We've got about 700 engineers globally across 40 different countries. So it is very important for consistency for our customers that we have a robust framework to use. Okay. All right. So having established the framework, this slide is really indicating the specific areas of what we're actually assessing when we're on site. And in actual fact, some of this information we gather prior to physically attending site on the day. So we may ask for, electrical inspection testings to understand, okay, what is the current state of the electrics? Are there any critical items that has been identified? Has the customer addressed these issues? But effectively, there's about 19 factors here we refer to as risk factors. And these are the conversations that we have with your customers will generally be specifically geared around these 19 elements. So as you can see, there's a few in there that's actually highlighted in red, and there's a reason for that. All risk factors are not weighted the same, so some will carry a higher rating mechanism. And when I say weighting, it's more about the importance of what we actually put on it in terms of the overall grading at the end. They will be determined by how severe an impact. If there are poor controls around these areas, they could have a very severe impact on the risk and it increase the likelihood of a loss occurring. So that's the rationale for the different weightings. So for example, if we take risk factor 2, for example, building combustibility, here we're actually looking at the physical construction features of the site. So again, all of this is really geared towards building resiliency and ensuring that our customers' assets and properties are protected and that they will be able to continue the operations of their business for a very long time. So with that particular risk factor, we're looking at the physical makeup. So the construction features, what is the frame of the risk? Is that timber? Is it concrete? Is it a steel construction? Moving on to the external wall makeup. So what is the external makeup of the facade? Is it brick clad? Is there a render system? What is the insulation sitting behind it? Things like cladding as well. Is there an element of the site that has extensive cladding? If so, what is the specification of the cladding? So there's, although it's only 19 risk factors, the depth of information that we go into can be quite significant depending on what we find on site, and equally the information that we are provided with from the customer. So all of this produces an end score for us. So when we look at all the information we've provided, we've been on site, we've gathered all the data, we've made a calculated risk engineering judgment. We provide each risk factor with a certain grading. So our gradings run from A to D, A being best in class and D being worst. So there are no controls whatsoever for that. And at the end, it produces a numerical score, which will indicate whether the risk is an excellent risk, a good risk, a fair risk, or a poor risk. So as you can see under the risk quality section, excellent, we would expect any scores from between 0 to 50, likewise going down the chart. Anything that is in excess of 151 would indicate it's a poor risk. And it's at that point, it becomes very, very crucial that any risk advice or recommendations put forward is adhered to. We will, of course, work very closely with the broking community, with the underwriters and the customer to achieve both compliance of the risk improvements, but equally to move the trajectory of that risk into ideally a good range. With that, we will also set our probable maximum loss. So with the PML, we are factoring in anything that will help to reduce the loss of the property, so to ensure it's not a total constructive loss. So for example, it is proven that sprinklers, so risk factor 8, is very, very heavily weighted. So where a site is sprinkler protected, assuming that it is adequate in accordance with LPC rules and FPA rules, we would expect that sprinkler system to significantly reduce the impact of a loss on that property. My colleague Derek will obviously go through that in more depth, but essentially that is a very brief overview of how we actually assess a property fire scenario. So what do we do with that information? So again, sorry, just bear with. Yeah, again, the main crux of it is we are here to provide risk management support and guidance to our customers. So where there are significant risk improvements that are generated, we work with them to implement those and to improve the risk. What we can do as account engineers, if we've got a customer, for example, and we've done many different locations for that specific customers, then we are able to extrapolate the data and any specific trends that we have seen over the years, or even on an annual basis, if that's preferred. And we're able to tailor our approach specifically to them and present them with the data and say, look, in this specific instance, we can see that you've got some challenges around sprinkler protections or significant deficiencies in fire detection systems. Here we see fire detection is one of the areas that are proving to have scored quite low across the book. So that's when we have conversations with our customers around, okay, what's happening here? Why are there deficiencies in the system? Is it predominantly, geared towards life safety, or, you know, are you having challenges with financing to be able to put additional smoke heads in, etc. And then we can support as necessary. So again, in this scenario, it might not even be that they don't have fire detection. It could be the level of detection that's present. So maybe they're missing detectors in key critical areas such as plant rooms or service risers, electrical intake rooms. And, you know, for us, that's a big issue, because they can be volatile areas. There's a lot of machinery. There's a lot of equipment in there that if it goes wrong, we would want early notification. So again, fire detection for us is very, very important. Or it could simply be that they do have fire detection, but it might be on a bells only arrangement. So a bells only arrangement, meaning that it does not indicate off-site to a monitoring station that the alarm has been activated. It is solely reliant on the general public to hear the alarm and, of course, ring the fire services. And for us, that's not ideal. It's a very reactive approach to risk management. So our preference would always be a more proactive approach, so making sure that there are mechanisms to identify when a fire starts, and equally what happens, what are the stages to the fire brigade getting on site. Fire brigade, when they attend site, it's not water on building right away. There's a dynamic risk assessment that is completed. That could take a number of minutes. And, you know, in a fire scenario, every single minute counts. So, you know, that is a really big one for us. Again, just going back to trends and data review. So again, you know, with the amount of knowledge that we have accumulated with our customers, with the portfolios and the locations and the sites that we've seen, these are just some of the areas that we can support with. So again, you know, looking at risk management culture, we spoke about risk improvements. If there are lots of risk improvements, you know, hundreds of risk improvements outstanding for a customer, and it's just not getting completed, it could indicate that there might be some challenges within that organization around the overall risk management culture. So it comes back to human behavior and, you know, what is the approach to that? But ultimately, you know, that is what we're here to help with and support with, in conjunction with the broking community and underwriting as well. Again, stewardship. So what we provide is, in addition to loss prevention surveys and risk improvements, we do provide our customers with an annual overview of the account that will indicate what we've done throughout the year, including any design meetings we participated in, any workshops, any training sessions that we've provided. We will give them an overview at account level of the loss estimates. So, for example, if there is a trend of deterioration in loss estimates, then we can actually say to our customers, right, let's highlight what's going on here. Why is this happening? Let's work with you to address that. So again, it's a very holistic approach, but because we have so much engagement with so many different individuals within the insurance process, it's a great opportunity to get that dialogue and that just have those conversations and be quite transparent. And finally, this is just a brief overview of some of the risk engineering services and capabilities that we offer. Whilst I'm predominantly talking about fire risk, we do provide other assessments as well. And again, you know, as part of the risk management function, our role is quite varied, and we do have a lot of expertise within the team and within the business. And our main focus will always be to support our customers, support our brokers, to make sure that there is longevity and sustainability of that risk, and that we're doing everything possible to help our customers. So again, you know, we can support with project services. So for example, if you've got a large customer that is doing a new build property, we can get involved at the early stages with that customer to say, what are the materials that you're planning to use? Are they fire resistant? If they're not fire resistant, what other mechanisms can we implement, such as fire detection systems, sprinkler systems, human behavior protocols and management protocols that we can support with? So I think the messaging here is getting our involvement at the early stages of any changes is really, really critical, because the last thing you want is they're just about get ready to build the property, and then insurers turn around and say, actually, we're not that keen on this. And that happens more often than you would think. Often we are the last point of consultation. So just to reiterate how important that is. But with that, I will take you to my colleague, Derek, who will take you through the fixed fire protection systems. Thank you.
Hi, thanks, Davey. Good morning, all. Just before I start, just introduce myself. My name's Derek Parr. I'm a fixed fire protection engineer for Zurich. I've been in the fire protection industry for 35 years, worked my way up from a contractor to a director, and I moved into the insurance sector in 2022, so 3 years now. And I just wanted to go through things that we now find, what we call emerging issues. We know spring protection, it does a really good job. It does a really good job at controlling, suppressing, extinguishing fires. They are only designed for controlling, but more often than not, they do extinguish them. But we just wanted to go through quickly, just go through the emerging issues that we're finding. But before we start, sorry. So before we start, I just wanted to go through and just go through what an actual sprinkler system is, because there's a lot of myths. A sprinkler head will only operate in the seat of a fire. If you just look at the four little pictures there, what you'll see is on the left, you'll see the little thermal element, the little red bulb, which is typical what you see on any sprinkler. It might be a different colour. It all depends on the operating temperature. What happens is the fire grows, the temperature rises, the thermal element shatters, which is the second picture. It releases this the little brass insert, and then we get water out of it. And like I say, it'll only happen where the seat of the fire is. The things what you see in the movies where if one goes off, they all go off, typically that's not a thing. It will happen in what we call deluge systems, which are more for like chemical risks, etc. But in terms of building, only in the seat of a fire where you get the sprinklers. So I just wanted to eradicate that myth. So we'll just quickly go through the slides. The next one is basically, what is a sprinkler system? It's what the picture is on the right. What you have is you have a source of supply, and that could be a pump with a tank, it could be a town's main, it could be an elevated reservoir, it could be anything. We have a source of supply, and it goes through a network of pipes, and it feeds these operating sprinklers. And as it just says on the left-hand side there with the text, that's exactly what it is. An activation of sprinkler initiates a pressure drop in a system, after which the water source delivers the water through the pipe network via the insulated control valves to be activated to the sprinkler. That's it. It doesn't get any more complicated than that. The issue is obviously the design of the thing. Every sprinkler system is bespoke to a property. So we'll just start to go through the emerging issues that we find. The main one at the moment is what we class as too tall, too dense. It's an emerging risk because since COVID, obviously online ordering, buying products online has gone off like 6-10-fold. Everybody seems to be doing it nowadays. So there's a need for these logistic companies to look at the way they operate in their warehouse. They don't necessarily want to move the warehouse, but what they want to do is they want to have a view of the warehouse and say, well, what can we do to change it? So we're going in now and we're finding that companies are putting these big automated systems in, which are over 12 meters high and probably like 8 meters in both directions, which is what we class as too dense. The problem with too tall, too dense, and what we need to think about is, how is the firefighter going to get into into these spaces to take out the burning product, because ultimately what I said before was it's only there to control it. So we've got a stored amount of water for the time, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever it may be. What happens at the end of it? And that's the issue. So as you can see on the pictures there, we've got a building which is too tall. We've got the top loading ASRS, and on the right, you've got the narrow aisles. All of them combined create these issues. As it says on the slide there, the customers are key. They do want to make the most efficient use of their space. They don't want to move premises. They're incumbent in that town, that city, whatever. They've signed up to big leases, so they want to use it and they want to maximize everything they can. There isn't a one size fits all with automation. Again, it's all bespoke to the property. And this is where the problems are becoming. Because it's bespoke, we can't say, like typically pallet beam racking, we know we've got a pallet, it sits on a beam, a forklift takes that pallet off, delivers it to wherever it needs to be. In an automated, it could be anything from a little tote box to a shoe box to a full-size 1.8 meter high pallet with goods on it. Everything's different. Fire protection lags behind storage solutions, and this is the problem. So if you just move on to this slide, what that specifically on the left, sorry, on the right hand side, you can see now what you're up against. When I talk about the firefighter gaining access, is how is he going to get into that type of structure? So if we go through, the slides, it says there it's massive rise in online sales. The stores are closing. If you look at any town now, there's a big drop in footfall in shopping centres and in town centres. The malls are becoming, and the arcades, whatever, are becoming ghost towns. We do appreciate some of the bigger ones like the Metro Centre up in Newcastle, the Trafford Centre, they still retain a good footfall, but it's the smaller towns because of these automated systems and the easier way to order. New online customers, again, since COVID, that's grown exponentially. Next day delivery, massive thing. I think we all, as soon as we click buy, we want our product then. We don't want to be waiting 5-7 days. We want it there and then. It's not just goods, it's also grocery. Ocado, the likes of that, Morrison's, they're all now doing online grocery shopping where you can get it delivered the same day. There's a need for it. So these companies are realizing this and they're putting these automated systems in. More warehousing demand. I mean, if you look around Northamptonshire, it seems to be the hub of logistic companies because of the ease of networks to M1, M6. You can drive down that M1, M6 at any time of the year. You will see cranes going up. That's how much we are moving into this automated culture. The bottom bit there where it's underlined proven fire protection systems are not readily available. That's correct. There isn't a solution that we could say this will work. We have test data to support it, but everything's bespoke. So what we need to do is take a holistic approach and say, what have we got? Look at every structure, look at every product that's going in there, look at every way the firefighter's going to get in there. We need to look at everything together. It's not just the warehouses though. Something else that we're now finding is in these shopping centres. There's a Spanish there's a Spanish retailer that you'll see in shopping centres now. They now start putting in what they call it's a silo, and it's the click and collect system. So basically, you order online, you go to the store, you put in your barcode or whatever, your QR code, and then you open a hatch and you collect your goods and you walk away. It's the click and collect culture that we all live in and we embrace now. What people don't realise is what have they got behind there? What they have got behind there is an automated retrieval system. There's a little robot on a crane that will go up, it'll pick the pallet off the tray, the goods off the tray, it'll deliver it to the hatch, it'll dump it, you open it, you take it away. What we have is an automated storage retrieval systems. These shopping centres, there was designed to like what we call an ordinary hazard, an ordinary hazard system. They're not designed for high hazard, which is what this is. They're not designed for this big combustible plastics, etc., etc. So again, we need to take this holistic approach and go, right, what can we do? we're all based off the water supplies that are on site. So it's a case of getting what the information we've got available, ascertaining, can we get these discharge densities? Can we get the right amount of water for the right amount of time to be able to control this fire? This is where we need to look at everything, like I say, holistically. We can't just say that fits that fits that. It doesn't work like that. So where can we help? So going back to what Dave said, the RFA, we will take that, we will take all the information, we can have a look at it, and we can offer guidance. Again, there's a few pictures there just going through about the firefighter. How are you going to get in there? How are you going to get in there? How is the firefighter going to get into that structure in a burning building? And that's what it says there. That strap line there is just the thing. Design, sprinklers are designed to control, not extinguish. How will final extinguishment be achieved? And this is where we can use our expertise to guide. We've got test data. We've got access to research groups. We're a collective group, the fire protection engineers. We come across these in different formats. We can offer guidance. So I just wanted to just go through that ASRS because, like I said, that is becoming more and more, and it's not just in warehouse. Please don't think this is just in warehousing. It's not going to affect me. It's in shopping centres. It'd be shop units. It could be anywhere. You will find an ASRS at some point because it is going larger and larger. So the next emerging issue is the lithium-ion. I think we all know there are issues with lithium-ion, and we all know that it's difficult to control because of the thermal runaway. Typically, you'll have a cell fire, cell failure, because it's densely packed together in boxes or in the product. You then get this thermal runaway. You get propagation of fire. Lithium-ion is a really difficult fire because itself, it basically self-propels the fire because it's got oxygen. It releases oxygen. The oxygen feeds the fire, and it just continues to burn. If you look at what we use lithium-ion in, and the little picture above, we use it in everything: smartphones, laptops. We use now in e-bikes. E-bikes are becoming a bigger issue. We started using the battery energy storage systems. As it says there, it continues to change shape and size. If you look at your little power banks, how they've changed over the last 5 years. We used to be dealing with 2,000 milliamps, now we're now up to 20, 30, 40,000, but the form factor has not changed. In fact, it's going smaller. So we're packing more power into smaller enclosures and then putting them into these warehouses. We can't keep up. The fire testing cannot keep up with those changes. We're our own sort of like worst enemy because we want this and we want it in a smaller form factor. We don't think about the consequences. So there's this need for bespoke testing. As it says on there is limited fire test. We are aware of the FM Global. There are some data sheets available that can be read, but that is more for the storage when it's on pallet racks and the fire is on the outside of the packaging. It's got to think about, well, what have we got when it's inside the box and it's burning the opposite way. And again, the strap line, sprinklers are designed to control, not extinguish. Where it is to be considered for the protection of the fire, we do encourage early engagement. That is key, not just to this, to be honest with you, to any sprinkler system. Early engagement is key with insurers, customers. Everybody gets on board. We talk about what we've got. Again, using this word holistic, we take a holistic approach at everything we do. Everybody knows what they're up against, and ultimately the end of the contract, the build or whatever, we sort of all walk away and we go, we've done the best to the current standards and guidelines. And as it says on the underlined, it's on a case-by-case basis because, like the ASRS, it's not a one-size-fits-all. So the things to consider with lithium-ion is a risk assessment. Obviously, the best form of risk assessment is to eradicate the risk. So do the risk assessment. Location, let's not try and put lithium-ion next to flammable liquids or dust or anything like that. Let's try and get it away. Temperature control. I mean, temperature control is a massive thing. We don't want to put it into ovens or anywhere near that or anything like that. The state of charge. We recommend that any batteries that are put into racking goes in at less than 30% charge. 100% was sort of like just asking for trouble, really. Detection, it's not all just about sprinkler protection, it's detection devices. So, you know, once it starts to thermal runaway, it gives off the gas and everything like that, flames, heat detectors, anything that can give that early warning, the better. A fire plan. Is there a fire plan? Are people aware that they've got lithium ion? And if they are, what is the fire plan? You know, are people trained? Do they know what to do? The fire protection, typically these lithium ion now will go onto pallet racks. It may be a system that was designed 30, 40 years ago. Is that still fit for purpose? An evaluation needs to be undertaken. Manual firefighting, again, going back to the SRS one. How are we going to get that product out of there? Because we can suppress it, we can control it, and that's what we're aiming to do. But what happens when the water runs out in that sprinkler tank? What happens then? So we need to be able to look at that manual firefighting and give the firefighter the access. And as it says at the bottom, the early engagement is key. And as I say, not just in this, but in anything, early engagement, especially with lithium ion, because we go back to the first one. We want to try and eradicate the risk if we possibly can. The third and final one, it's a difficult one. It's what we call the forever chemicals. You've probably heard the term now, forever chemicals. It seems to be a flavour of the month or whatever. But it's what we call a PFAS. Within AFFF, aqueous film forming foam, it contains PFAS. Studies, testing, whatever. There's a film called Dark Water. I don't know if you've seen it. That's really worth watching. It shows what the problems is with these PFAS, these forever chemicals, once they get into the waterway. Unfortunately, PFAS is in pretty much everything we use, going from paints all the way down to your frying pan. It's a non-stick coating, and we use it because it's perfect for film forming foam. It doesn't stick to the product. When it does, it smothers it, and when it smothers the product, it takes the oxygen content and it cools. Because of this AFFF, and this PFAS issue, we need now to start looking, because the government, the European Union, they're looking to eradicate the use of these forms. The PFASs, and that includes the AFFF. So the global regulations, as it stands, and this is forever moving, there is a move to ban it, forever chemicals, and in Europe, the C8 is already been phased out and should not be in use. So if there's a C8 form on site, then it should be removed straight away. The C6 are being phased out. I don't know if you're aware what a C8, C6 is, but basically it's the carbon content. So there's 8 carbon molecules in a C8 and 6 carbon molecules in a C6. That's the difference between the two forms. C8 should already be banned. They should be outlawed, shouldn't have any of them on site. That includes fire extinguishers. And C6 are in a phase of they have come up with, when I say they, the people in charge have kind of come up with these rules, and they say what we're going to aim to do is by 2027 to phase out any C6 forms that cannot be contained on site. So if in the event of a form release after 2027, you shouldn't be using a C6 form, and 2030 if you can contain it. We're in 2025, so there's a push now to look at the forms on the site and say, right, okay, what do we do with this? Now, as I say, this is current guidelines. It's not been cast in stone. I did have a word with a colleague of mine who said they are looking at bringing the 2030 date to 2027. That's 2 years off. That's not a lot of time when you think about it. Bottom there, at the end of the 2024, most of the world's leading producers, there's 2 major firefighting foam manufacturers who cease manufacture of a C6 form in 2024. They are still available, but if you can imagine, once they've ceased trading, those stocks are becoming less and less. So we need to start thinking about what are they going to do if they've got an accidental discharge. What are they going to do with the terms of replenishing the foam tanks? So if we just go through the things to consider, so just at the top there, so we've got this aqueous film forming foam. There is this move to move it from an AFFF to an SFFF, which is a synthetic film former. The problem is it's not a direct drop-in replacement, and you need a full assessment to be able to look at it and the suitability and the compatibility of that synthetic film. It's not. AFFF used to be basically a plug and play. You could get that tank, that proportioner, that foam, put it into a system and it works. SFFF is not like that at all. Everything's bespoke and it needs to be taken into account and look at the test data, the approvals, and does it work? So the things to consider is the customer aware of the issue and the duty to the environment? Are they aware? They should have had an environmental letter telling them their duty. Has the customer considered and explored the water-based solution? Does the customer have a stock of the AFFF? That's the thing where we go, well, actually, these stocks are now depleting. We haven't got the same amount of stock as we did 2 years ago. What happens in the event? Are they still going to be covered? And does the customer need to know, do they know that they need to prepare, and have they got options to minimise the impairment and maintain adequate protection? I think those questions, they're the first 4 questions to ask. I just go, right. And if any of the answers are no, this is where we can help, and we can help. We offer guidance on all of those 3 subjects. We can offer the guidance, we can offer current standards, and we do have direct contact with manufacturers and other leading experts. Hopefully that's given you a brief insight into what we're classing as emerging issues. As I say, if you need any assistance, any help, just please come to us. But again, the key to it is early engagement with any customer is key to that. So thank you, and I'll pass over to Jack.
Hello everyone, I'm Jack and I work in ZRS and lead the RCA team here. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about underinsurance and what we can do to mitigate this. So getting started, if your customer is underinsured, in the event of a claim, a few things could happen. The insurer may void the policy, the insurer may recall money paid from previous claims, your customer may receive a reduced payout, or your customer may be liable for the shortfall in the event of a claim if average is applied. Just to run through a bit of a real-world example where a particular customer applied insurance based on market value rather than a reinstatement value. So the insurance was capped to a specific declared value on a residential property due to concerns with the sum insured. The average clause was put in place for this policy. The insured suffered a loss of £320,000. However, the property was only insured for £184,000. The insured had to self-fund that £136k difference. Upon investigation, it was determined that the insured had used the market value instead of the reinstatement or rebuild cost. Just taking a quick look at market trends and what we see most as an RCA team. So 76% of UK buildings are currently underinsured. On average, buildings are only covered for about 63% of the amount that they should be. 10% of SMEs wouldn't survive a £10,000 claim. And just to sort of elaborate on the above, some of the most common reasons for underinsurance are incorrect methodologies used, market values used instead of reinstatement costs, lack of understanding of the true cost of rebuilding a property, quick and cheap assessments that are totally inappropriate for the property types, incorrect data applied such as costs, floor areas, etc., and total reliance on published average construction costs. We all know that the average costs is a really, really good tool to sort of benchmark, but I suppose in my opinion they shouldn't be used solely and to place insurance on that basis. So yeah, just on this slide here, this is where we see some of the most underinsurance as a team when we're out on the ground. So in the sort of education, hotels, council, municipal buildings, industrial offices and health and leisure. And that's where we see the most sort of significant underinsurance. So just taking a quick look at the sort of construction cost forecasts over the next few years. So we've had quite a turbulent few years with increasing construction costs rising up to 20 or 30% in some cases. Over the next year and a few years, hopefully, we will see that the upstick will ease slightly, and we can expect to see nominal 3 to 5% increases, which is a more normal pre-COVID level. Just to reiterate, costs will look to return to a more normal increases, but it doesn't mean to say that RCAs are no longer important. If your customer's figures are not correct now, then the further we move from this point, the customer will be more and more over or underinsured. And yeah, just a quick snapshot at some of the material price changes over the last few years, some really, really big increases there. So just a little bit about the services as a team that we offer. So who can we help? We can help anyone, investor, occupier, developer and specialist, whether they sit within municipal, real estate, mid-market, SME, property owners, charities, or education. We really can help everyone, and that goes for a lot of the other services that are spoken about on the call today as well. And here are our 3 core services. So we provide on-site assessments, sort of boots on the ground approach, and we can provide desktop assessments for those properties that perhaps aren't as deserving of an on-site inspection, and a portfolio health check, which is a relatively new service that we've started to offer. So this is for customers with large portfolios, instead of sort of just throwing money at a problem that may not actually be a problem. We offer a service where we provide a high level overview across the entire portfolio, and a sort of a red, amber, green system report as a result. So the customer can sort of say, hey, look, 50% of them are pretty good, the other half are quite bad, let's focus funds there, and we can sort of develop a program, whether it's on-site or desktop, to sort of get those sums insured looked at as a result. That's all from me. Just passing over to Andy now.
Thanks, Jack. So yeah, thank you very much for the 3 of you for going through the slides and giving updates. So what I'm going to do now, just conscious of time, we were very ambitious to go through 3 areas, but I really hope you found it useful. So now's the time. If you've got any questions, please put them in the chat, and then obviously I'll ask either DV, Jack, or Derek, the 3 experts. So I'll get started straight away because we've already had a couple of questions. I will, in fact, DV, just probably one for you to start with. So someone's asked here about with a varied property portfolio across the UK, it's a risk. Are the risk ratings not too linear? How does it take into account BS not 9999, 9991, or even BS 7974? DV, if you can help with that one.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, it's quite a mouthful to read out, isn't it? Thank you, Chris. I believe the question came from Chris on the chat. Yes, indeed. I appreciate the framework might seem a little bit restrictive. I suppose we've got to bear in mind that when we go to a site, we are very much measuring that site on its own merit. So it will very much depend on the nature of the site, the nature of the business. We would fully expect that BS standards are compliant. However, often in the regulatory space, the priority tends to be life safety. So where insurers often get this pushback is around, we are fully compliant with the BS standards. What you're asking for is actually above and beyond the regulatory compliance, which actually is in fact true. The rationale for that is, again, whilst we are also very, very concerned with life safety, equally, we'd like the building to remain in situ as well at the end if there was a fire. So, for example, when we mentioned earlier around fire brigade intervention, a lot of these standards are particularly looking around evacuation routes, the time to get individuals out safely. But what it's not factoring in is actually, will the building remain standing at the end? So I think that is something to bear in mind. And again, firefighters will not commit personnel into the building if there's not a risk to life. So, yes, we might be a little bit more stringent in terms of what we're asking, but effectively, if you save the property, it's likely you're going to save lives as well. So hopefully that answers your question. Thank you.
Brilliant, thanks, Davey. Derek, I will come to you on the next one. So someone's asked about the difference between the various editions of sprinkler installations.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. So we have a number of them, to be honest with you. What we have is we have a wet system where all the pipework is filled with water. Obviously that determines that it depends if your building is heated more than 4 degrees C. If it's not, there's a chance of freezing. What they can do is what we call a dry system, which there is pipework under air pressure. Once a head activates, the air is expelled out of the pipework. The water pressure takes over. There's more water pressure than air. Water is delivered to the operating sprinklers. There's a system called deluge system. What a deluge system, when I talked about only heads in the seat of the fire will operate, and the deluge system, what the intended purpose is not just to control the fire, it's also to control the environment as well. So what we want to do is we want to try, this is where you typically find them in chemical tank farms, is we want to try and cool the entire area around all the adjacent tanks as well. So what we'd have there is we'd have a sprinkler it'd operate all of the other sprinklers, and we get all this water being dumped into this tank farm and cool the area. And the other one is what we call a pre-action system, which typically go in sort of like sensitive areas, data rooms, data warehouses, that type of scenario. What that is, imagine it's a combination between a dry and a wet system. Basically, there's air in the pipe, but it's atmospheric. And what we need sort of like 1 or 2 forms of trigger. So without being too technical, there's a single knock and a double knock. What you have is either a sprinkler head operates, that goes into its first knock, but then you also need an electrical device. So it could be a smoke detector, heat, whatever. You need that signal as well, and it goes to an electrical panel, and then that releases the solenoid. Only when you've got 2 confirmed signals will you get water. There is a single knock where it'll only work on a detection, and everything again is bespoke to the customer or whatever they need. But that's what a pre-action system is. The deluge obviously is complete flooding. Dry is when it goes into areas less than 4 degrees, and wet is when it goes over 4 degrees. Hopefully that answers the question.
Perfect, thanks, Derek. That was a better answer than I would have given, so thank you. We've had another question just about underinsurance and average. So Jack, I'll try and cover this and shout if I miss anything. But yeah, on the underinsurance side, obviously Jack gave that claims example. I speak to a number of people like yourself about protecting clients, and often I'll get this where someone will say we've either not had a valuation since 2020, or they don't even know when the last valuation was done. So when Jack showed that graph earlier, to me that's really important because it showed on there the spike from 2022. If they haven't had it since that time, definitely recommend kind of reach out to us, see if we can help the client. No, obviously there are budget issues and priorities, etc., but we can work with clients over a period of up to 5 years to help them. So likelihood is, yeah, we would apply average to that, but as Jack has shown, that can make a big difference. So if someone can pay a small amount of money to get that valuation up to date, it's absolutely going to help them in the medium and long term as a business, help that business survive. We'll go through one last question because I'm conscious of now I was going to wrap up. So Derek, I don't know if this is you, just if you can give us sort of 30-second answer, but someone's asked about gas discharge fire suppression systems. Where would they be fitted? Why are new domestic homes not fitted with fire sprinkler systems?
With terms of gas suppression systems, again, when I talk about that bespoke, gas suppression systems are great, they work, but it's only you've got to retain the gas for 10 minutes. That might not suit in all scenarios. We're okay when we sort of talk about little data rooms, IT rooms, because we can guarantee that all the fire stopping, the room's completely sealed. But when we talk about bigger data halls, it's difficult to be able to retain that gas. And you can imagine if you've got a warehouse like not to use brand names, but sort of like Google, you can imagine their data center trying to fill that entire space with a gas suppression system is going to prove difficult because of the amount of bottles. It is done, don't get me wrong, but sometimes a pre-action system, a water base might suit the risk more. Yes, we will get water damage, but it is confined to where the fire is, going back to how sprinklers operate. So that's on the gas question. Sorry, Andy, what was the second question?
What I'll do, because I'm just conscious we've only got 3 or 4 minutes. So Derek, I'll send that one over to you, and then yeah, we can Richard, if you're okay, we'll finish that one directly if that's okay.
Okay.
Just conscious of time, but perfect. So yeah, last part for me is obviously someone's asked about slides. I think no, we'll go through that in a second. But yeah, massive thanks. If there are any areas that you do want to reach out, obviously you can see the contact details there. Please come to us directly if we can support you. Again, really hope you found this useful from a client point of view. So Niall, over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Andy, and thank you to the rest of our speakers today. That was definitely a lot of detail in there, and really useful to have you walk us all through that. So thank you once again. As Andy has just alluded to, and we've obviously mentioned a couple of times, we will be sending around the recording of the call once we've uploaded it to YouTube later today, hopefully. So, and in that we'll include a feedback form. So if you'd be so kind, if you have a couple of minutes at some point this afternoon or next week, if you could let us know your thoughts on the webinar and what you enjoyed and what you think we could improve on in the future, or any particular topics or areas you would like us to cover. That would be brilliant. So thank you once again, Andy, Jack, Davey and Derek, for walking us through that, and to the rest of you for joining. It's seen some really good numbers, so appreciate that, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your days and your weekend when it arrives. Thank you very much.